did not have 18 months ago. We have vaccines, and they are crucial, and we're not available for most of the last 3 semesters. We have experience garnered through this past year on testing, on monitoring, and other best practices. And we have leaned heavily on experts during the past months in particular through very inclusive committee groups, including the Fall 2021 Planning Committee, the Public Health Advisory Committee, and the Student Success Engagement and Learning Committee. And these experts representing not only our faculty, staff, and students, but also members of our broader community here in Flagstaff and across the state, have worked very hard to make sure that they are providing us the best input and advice on how to inform our decision making. The fact is that since I have been at NAU, we have dedicated the work of each and every day toward this that will happen in less than a week, having back our students, our faculty and staff on our campus, not only in Flagstaff, but throughout the state of Arizona. And we have done so with an eye toward health and safety and a desire to ensure our mission of engaging personal, supportive educational environment is provided to the fullest extent possible to our students. So today's focus is on updating on our policies and protocols to date, what is forthcoming that you can expect later this week, and addressing the major areas of questions that we have received during the last several weeks. I am joined by 3 leaders from our university: Karen Pugliese, our Provost and VP of Academic Affairs, Margot Saltonstall, our VP of Student Affairs, and Josh Mackey, our VP of Human Resources. And I very much look forward to important updates from each of them. We have received a lot of questions and comments from our online feedback form, and many center around similar topics. So I look forward to addressing those in our comments and also directly addressing them as part of a question and answer session at the end of the event. We will also make sure that we reserve time to take live questions that are submitted via Zoom during the course of the event. Now, before turning it over to our panelists, who will each spend about 5 to 10 minutes giving us an overview of very day-to-day operational issues associated with the broader guidance framework that we have put in place, I want to highlight some of the big takeaways. The first one is that vaccines continue to be our best line of defense against COVID and its variants. And to this end, we will continue to strongly encourage, incentivize, and facilitate that more of our campus community consider being vaccinated. The second thing is that we understand that given the current conditions that we are facing in Coconino County, that it is prudent to work within the legal framework that is available to our universities in the state of Arizona, and not only strongly encourage the use of face coverings and masks indoors, but also to require them in those places where physical distancing, indoor or outdoors, is not possible. Of course, requiring them of all students, faculty, and staff, regardless of vaccination status. Additionally, we have learned during the last 18 months that one of the best ways for us to keep on top of the healthcare realities of our campus community, testing is important. And so in addition to wastewater monitoring, we will be relaunching a voluntary mitigation testing process whereby we will be using a weighted random algorithm to identify folks from our campus community and ask them to, appealing to their sense of community of care, to be vaccinated. We have established on our campus at the NAU Fieldhouse the facilities to do this in a non-invasive way, in a quick way, while allowing our faculty, students, and staff, and broader community members in Flagstaff to choose the vaccine that they would prefer, and have the testing done in a quick manner. Finally, we will also be mindful of considerations that may require mandatory testing, especially if in consultation with the State Department of Health, we reach a certain threshold where it would be in everybody's best interest, for example, in our residence halls, for mandatory testing to be put in place. So with those broad brushstrokes on the framework that will define our policies and practices moving forward, I will now turn over to each one of our panelists so that they can drill down into how these high-level policies and practices translate to very day-to-day events. We will provide each of them 5 to 10 minutes to give us their perspectives on these issues, and then we will turn to a question and answer session. So with that, I will turn it over to our provost, Provost Pugliese. Karen, can you please take it away?
Good morning. I see we have nearly 700 participants in this town hall. It's great that you're all with us today. We are eager to welcome students to the university this fall. And our top priorities in doing that are to offer an excellent academic experience to all of our students while we work to provide a safe learning environment and working environment for everyone. Here I'm going to highlight some key elements of the operational protocols that we're going to use with a focus on instruction. I ask that faculty please refer to the communication I sent out yesterday that includes more detailed guidance for each of you in your work with students. Masks are going to be required in spaces in which physical distancing is not possible. This includes classrooms, labs, studios, meeting areas, and other facilities where we teach, learn, and conduct research or scholarly activity. I'm happy to report that we're continuing to utilize enhanced cleaning protocols in classrooms, and our facilities crews have adjusted the HVAC systems to allow more outside air, and in some classrooms we have portable air filtration systems in place. Please look for instructions posted in particular classrooms about how to best accommodate the use of those enhanced ventilation protocols. Faculty and graduate students who are holding office hours may elect to do so virtually using our Zoom and other technologies. At the same time, as mentioned, we also expect students and others to wear masks in spaces where physical distancing is not possible. As I've indicated in my communication, we have made available downloadable printable signage that you can use on your private office spaces where that is appropriate. We are recommending that faculty ask their students to seat themselves in a consistent configuration throughout the term. If you are able to use a seating chart and assign seats, that's wonderful. But if you can't do that, at least ask students to seat themselves as consistently as possible, and that will support our contact tracing efforts throughout the semester. Students that are participating in placements, internships, other required academic activities that are hosted by our partners must follow the requirements and policies of our partners and hosts for those learning activities. That is consistent with past practice. We expect everyone to comply with our operational protocols, and in instances where that may not happen, we will deal with that using our student code of conduct. Vice President Saltonstall will talk a little bit more about that in her section of this town hall. We are going to be providing academic support services in a variety of modalities, including both in-person and flexible. We will use NAU Flex, which is a modality that we can use to engage students in the learning experience remotely in a very selective way to support students who must be absent from class if they're ill and are absent for reasons of quarantine or isolation. And similarly, if our GTAs or faculty are required to be absent because of their own illness. We also ask that faculty honor any disability resources accommodations for students. You would be notified about that through our Disabilities Resources Department. We are going to be providing masks for our faculty and staff, and please look on the JAX Are Back website later this week where information will be posted about how those masks will be distributed and made available to you. I think that concludes the highlights that I'll make now, and I'll be happy to answer questions in the question and answer portion of this town hall. And I'll turn it over back to President Cruz Rivera.
Thank you, Provost Pugliese. We will now turn to our VP of Student Affairs, Margot Saltonstall.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. We are so excited for the year ahead, and we really don't want to have to return to a place of deep restrictions. Instead, we really want to be focusing on learning and success and not missing out this year. So to that end, we are promoting, as you know, vaccinations and really are strongly encouraging going to the field house through the end of the month. They'll be available there. We're also going to have a pop-up vaccination site on South Campus on Tuesday, August 24th from 3 to 6. So that'll be convenient for folks on South Campus. And then after the end of the month, Campus Health Services will also be providing vaccines. More information, of course, is available on the JAX Are Back website. We're also really thrilled to report the response to the JAX Are Vaxxed incentive campaign, which is a program for all enrolled students, regardless of what campus you're on, to upload your vaccination card and be eligible for several really great prizes. We've already awarded a MacBook, a rec package, an Apple Watch. This week, we're looking to identify prizes for those who've entered, including a smart TV and a Hulu subscription, meal planning scholarships, and ahead we also have a snowball season pass, as well as a number of signed Suns jerseys. So if you haven't already, upload your vaccination card, and this is ongoing. As students get vaccinated, they can keep entering into the process by uploading those cards. As the president mentioned, testing is also really important for us to make sure that we're in a place where we're not missing out and we're really able to be fully in person this year. We're expanding the times and the number of bays that are available this week at the field house. So it would be a great part of move-in for students to go and get tested. We know now we're seeing that the CDC recommendations include, even if you're vaccinated, if you've been exposed, to test. So really can't encourage that enough. And again, more information on the JAX Are Back website. If students do get sick, we do have guidelines in place for quarantining and isolation, both through Housing and Residence Life and supported by the Office of the Dean of Students. Care managers in those offices are really here to support students through that process. We also have shuttles that are helping students move if needed, and meals that are being delivered. And in general, just are working to make this process as smooth as it can be. We are initiating the COVID Watch app again this year, and that's an anonymous tool that helps us stay aware of when we might have been exposed. And so a lot more information is forthcoming about that tool, and really would encourage using the COVID Watch so that we can really stay connected and informed. As Provost Pugliese pointed out, we have the mask requirements and will be enforcing that through the code of conduct. But I want to be really clear that our approach here is not a punitive one. It's really an educational one. The Dean of Students office is here to support students and is really very community minded. And that means that we really strive to explain the whys of our rules and policies, and make sure that we're really focused on the well-being of our whole community. Lastly, I just want to mention that we really are, promoting engagement. We know that there may be some restrictions and some pivots that we have to make, but we want to encourage clubs and organizations to keep their meetings going, to use the registration tools, to participate in the tool True Blue Connects, where you can register clubs and organization members, and that'll really help us if we need to notify students. Also encourage all students to attend their first floor meeting in the residence halls, to stay educated via Jacks Are Back, and to engage in the Lumberjack Experience activities. And there are so many different ones, really creative ones, great chance to reconnect and get the fall semester started off in all the right ways. Looking forward to answering a few more questions that I might not have hit on, but turning it back to President Cruz Rivera and Vice President Josh Mackey.
Thank you, VP Sarton-Stahl. We will now move to VP Josh Mackey, who will talk about the workplace-related operational practices surrounding our COVID-19 policies.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy to give a little overview and then participate in the Q&A. I want to start by just expressing, our sincere appreciation for the leadership and engagement of all of our employees that are going to make this a safe and successful year. And also thank you for all the work that you've done to this point to get us to this launch. Our students really need our presence and engagement, but we're also working to be a flexible workplace. And as we shared earlier this summer, a priority for this fall is leading a work group and assessing and optimizing our plans for a flexible workplace into the future. So that work will happen in the fall, but right now we're very focused on our immediate and successful start to the fall 2021 semester. The majority of our faculty and staff returned to campus this week. And that's our default, that employees are on campus and fully engaged. We've provided some division and college leadership the leeway in making some flexible work arrangements. That will vary given on the amount of student or customer engagement and other considerations at the unit level. So we do know that our supervisors and leaders have been working through that process and working with employees on work agreements and expectations. Employees may also qualify for accommodations or leaves. Those details are available on our disability resources site or our benefits website. Those are also linked through our Jacks Are Back website, and that's where we'll be posting most of our workplace information and guidelines. We did recently post an update, recent as in this morning, and we'll continue to do that as we get more updates. Another thing I want to mention is, and you've heard this, and you'll continue to hear this throughout our conversation today, is it's very important that we keep each other as healthy as we can. And one of the ways we can do that is not coming to work if you're sick. Same thing goes for students not coming to class if you're sick. On the faculty and staff side, we also don't want you in the classrooms or workplaces when you're sick. We've got various leave options available to employees, such as sick time, vacation leave, earned comp time, and leave without pay if we need to use that. We're also asking supervisors to work with employees on temporary work from home options, if that fits for the position, especially if employees need to quarantine or isolate. So we'll continue to update guidelines. I've got several other updates I'll provide probably through the Q&A, but right now I'll turn it back to President Cruz Rivera to lead us through that Q&A.
Thank you, VP Mackey. So we've received several questions via our online form prior to the event, and we continue to receive questions as the event progresses. We have had a chance to, at least those questions that we received beforehand, to sort of arrange them in a thematic way. And so we will try to address as many of those questions as possible now, leave a little bit of time for any new questions that come in. And as I've said in previous town halls, anything that we don't get a chance to respond to today, please do visit our Jacks Are Back website, as we will make sure that we get those responses in short order. So the first question that we have received to kick things off is a question about current events, something that is in the news today, and that has to do with booster shots. The question is, will NAU provide access to boosters when they become available for Pfizer and Moderna recipients? And the answer is yes. We have demonstrated throughout this pandemic that we are at the forefront of getting access to the vaccines and other mitigation strategies that we feel would serve our campus community well. And so we will be working with our state partners and county partners and city partners and federal partners to ensure that as soon as booster shots become available, that we can get access to them and make them in turn available to our campus community and our Flagstaff community more generally through our vaccination program here on campus. Of course, this is still fluid and dynamic. So as things evolve, we will make sure that we communicate to the campus about availability. The next question has to do with what is the policy for NAU Flex? And I'll ask Provost Pugliese and VP of Student Affairs, Margot Saltonstall, to take a stab at this question.
Thank you. Well, the focus will be on fully in-person instruction. However, as I mentioned before, faculty have the option and they've demonstrated their great capacity to use the NAU Flex technology and pedagogical strategies when that is useful to help students in situations where they have to be absent due to illness or to accommodate a student that has a formal disability resources accommodation. So our faculty will continue to use NAU Flex to prioritize student success, but generally, again, we are embracing full in-person instruction.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, I want to just assure folks that we do have protocols in place, that our care protocols for students in isolation will really help ensure that they're supported and that they continue to be engaged. We'll have resources, as I mentioned, from Housing and Residence Life, from the Office of the Dean of Students, from dining, and from other areas. And in cases where there is more serious illness, we'll work through the standard protocols for medical absences and the like.
Thank you so much. There's a related question. Will NAU be offering fully online options? Perhaps the provost can respond.
Yes, of course, NAU is known for its excellent online programs. Those are available. I encourage any student that might have an interest in pursuing a degree program online to consult first with their advisor and understand what's available to them. And that is an option that continues to be available.
Thank you. Can students be asked to wear masks during classes? I'll open this one up to all three of our panelists, perhaps with the provost getting us started.
Yes, we are recommending strongly that masks be worn indoors or outdoors where physical distancing is not possible. So all of us should be prepared to use masks at any time. Please look for signage around campus for particular areas where masks are required. That includes, as I mentioned before, classrooms, labs, and some sorts of settings where in small spaces where physical distancing is not possible and academic activities take place. Of
course, we're really hopeful that folks will comply with the strongly recommended and the requirements of masking, but we are prepared through the Office of the Dean of Students to enforce these practices. And really, as I mentioned before, with an eye toward being educational. As an educational institution, we really want to focus on the rationale behind our practices. And so again, that's where our intention will be. And we'll really strive to do that regarding masking, as we do with all of the topics in our code of conduct.
Just a final point here on this. As Karen mentioned in her comments, we're really relying heavily on the signage. That'll be the indicators and cues for everyone to understand if it's a mask recommended area or if you're in an area that's going to require a mask. So we recommend that you have your mask on you at all times when you're on campus. And again, we strongly recommend that you wear it all times when you're indoors. But when you get to a location where mask is required, you will need to put that on. So please be prepared for that.
Thank you much. Earlier in the opening statement, I talked a little bit about mitigation testing as being one of the overarching strategies that we would be using to keep our campus safe. And so I have a question about what is the protocol for mitigation testing that I have mentioned. And I think perhaps Josh and Margot could weigh in on this. Josh?
Sure, I'll get us started. It's a really good question. And basically, we'll be launching our mitigation program. It will be voluntary, but it will also follow the same structure that we used last year when it was mandatory. We really believe that mitigation testing was a big part of our success last year in limiting spread on campus. So we're going to leverage a similar protocol this year. For those that aren't familiar, it worked by us sending an invitation, and that's what we'll do this year. Most likely those will go out on Fridays, and that'll give you your invitation to testing, which we'd like you to complete that following week. So that'll be included in the notice, and it will give you your testing window and how to sign up for your mitigation testing, which will be saliva testing, just so everybody knows that's the method that we'll be using again this year. We'll be using a weighted random sample. So that means it's random, but we do add some weight to populations that have shown more exposure or symptoms through other means that we're using to also trying to monitor things like our contact tracing, of course, wastewater monitoring, and the like. So some of those samples, random samples each week, will be weighted based on those areas that we're seeing either more spread or more positive activity. That'll help us be able to hopefully be more reactive and quickly intervene where we detect positive cases.
Thanks, Josh. I would just add that the whole process is really, really important for our students and for their well-being. And in their living environments, we really want to encourage testing as much as possible so that we can be aware and so we can be ready to respond. Of course, as you mentioned, testing is optional, but I really want to call on students and the whole community to really live out the lumberjack community of care ethos, right? And participate not only for yourself, but for the sake of others. And it really helps us know what's going on and keeps us doing the right things. And the more that we're in the know, the better.
Thank you so much. Given that we are strongly recommending the use of masks and face coverings indoors and also requiring it whenever there are situations where physically distancing is not possible, I have a question about whether or not NAU would be providing masks to faculty, staff, and students. So I'll open it up to Karen and Margot on this one.
Great question, especially since we're requiring masks in some of our learning and scholarly settings. Yes, we will be providing masks. Disposable surgical masks will be available in common areas around campus. In addition to that, employees and students will be provided masks. Please look on the Jacks Are Back website for information about where you can obtain masks. That's especially the case for faculty and staff. That information will be on that website by the end of the week. And I'll mention too that in response to a request from faculty that some non-medical grade N95 masks will also be available. These are the type of N95 masks that don't require fitting. And there will be information on the Jaxerback website for those of you that are interested in that type of masks.
And we are working to have masks widely available. At the same time, we really want to reiterate what Josh was saying about having a mask on you at all times. I think for the most part, people have masks. If you end up in a situation where you don't, we should be having those in offices around campus and widely available. Also encouraging folks to watch signage. The signage around campus will really signal to us the areas where masks are required. And of course, we can be educating ourselves about the best practices around mask wearing and other precautions through the CDC guidelines, which really, the basic tenet there is that if you can't distance, mask. And so we're really, really encouraging that and gearing up to make those available for students and the whole community.
Thank you. So we all know that during the pandemic, one of the things that really affected our ability to advance our mission in a way that we've been accustomed to relates to travel. The travel from everything from field trips to study away, to study abroad, to field work on research settings, to attending conferences, to share knowledge with colleagues. So one of the questions I have is, what are NAU's policies for the fall for faculty, staff, and student travel? I'll ask Karen to lead this one off, and then perhaps Margot, you could also chime in.
Thank you. Yes, as President Cruz Rivera has indicated, travel is an essential part of many of our endeavors, including scholarly and research endeavors, teaching, and the engagement of our faculty and staff with professional communities. We are reverting to essentially pre-pandemic travel policies, which means there are no restrictions on essential business and professional travel domestically nor internationally. We do strongly encourage everyone to consult the CDC recommendations or guidelines about travel. And note that the CDC has also begun to offer advisories about travel to particular locations internationally. We also, as in the past, ask that there be consultation with our Center for International Education and the State Department website for further advisories about travel related to other kinds of risks and considerations.
And really, much of that, of course, is true for student travel related to clubs and organizations or student programming. Again, asking that for university-sponsored travel for students, that if it's not possible to distance, that we're going to be wearing masks again in transit or at those destinations. And I will say that this is something students are really looking forward to, and so we really want to get it right. Clubs and organizations yesterday in a meeting, students were really just really ready to get back to this part. So hoping that we can be in compliance here and make these really fun and engaging, enriching activities possible.
Thank you. We've talked about the importance of testing and how that allows us to really keep tabs on the collective health of our campus community and inform the interventions that we can make to improve conditions on campus. And so to that end, one of the questions that we have from our community is, will NAU be providing a dashboard of these results? Josh?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. It's a easy answer, but an important one. Yes, we'll be providing a dashboard with the starting the first week of school. We intend to post that weekly results on our testing results be posted.
Thank you. We've made a point of strongly encouraging masks indoors and requiring them in those places where physical distancing is not possible. And this, of course, includes most of our classrooms and labs and certain meeting spaces. But there is a question around whether or not private workspaces, for example, faculty offices or staff offices, where the ability to distance may be difficult, whether or not those spaces will be able to require masking. So I will ask Karen to take this one.
Thank you. Yes, as we've indicated, masks may be required in smaller spaces where distancing is not possible and where important academic activities are taking place. So that includes private faculty offices or staff spaces that don't accommodate distancing. And as I mentioned earlier, we're making available downloadable, printable signs through our printing services unit. Those will be, those are linked to the message that I sent out yesterday and will be also, I believe, linked to the Jaxerback website.
Very good. Some other important spaces around campus that perhaps we haven't discussed as much, given the focus to date on classrooms, labs, office spaces. The question is, what is NAU doing for the gym and the pool? And so I'll turn over this question to Margot.
Well, we're open, and I know folks are really excited about that. We've been working with the Health Advisory Committee on how to open, how to phase, keeping spacing and ventilation. And we've really been following through their guidance the best science-based guidelines. Right now, we're looking at increasing opportunities to use outdoor space. We're also focused on ongoing cleaning and deep cleaning, as well as ventilation and monitoring airflow in different kinds of spaces available in those facilities. Strongly recommending masking and, of course, having plans should we need to implement any future precautions.
Thank you. That's excellent. Related question, what is NAU doing for events and other activities? Perhaps Margot and Josh could chime in on this one.
Sure. So speaking from the student side, we have lots of things planned with the Lumberjack experience, and we also are working really hard to creatively use some outdoor space, working with campus operations to bring up some outdoor tents that will likely have tutoring and academic support. We have a really creative team who are really eager to be back serving students face to face, and they are generating all kinds of ideas for engaging. We may also be able to bring up a tent where we could have student organizations reserve spaces for outside meetings. So just putting those creative minds to work really to help focus on the in-person experience.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, we're continuing to monitor and evaluate how to deliver all types of events across campus, athletics, concerts, cultural and community events. So we'll be continuing to update the guidance on that. In general, we'll generally just strongly recommend masks for everything. And where we can, we'll require those masks in those academic activities where we can't distance. So again, we're sensitive to all types of events and continuing to monitor that. I know we have a related question about having outdoor activities for clubs and organizations, and if that'll be allowed, and if masking will be required there. So I just want to go ahead and speak on that too, that's definitely something that's come up several times in our public health advisory group, is outdoor spaces and leveraging those wherever we can. So we strongly encourage our student groups and others to use those outdoor spaces. We've got, good airflow. Flagstaff is a great outdoor place. So we encourage people to be outside and use those spaces.
Well, I'm certainly really happy to see that our staff and academic and administrative leadership is really thinking creatively about how to better make use of this beautiful campus in Flagstaff and the similar locations that we have across the state. So very appreciative of those efforts. Moving now to some other questions that pertain to particular spaces of our campus work. What happens if a student is quarantined or isolated? how do they continue to receive instruction? Perhaps Karen and Margot can take this one.
Any student who is quarantined or isolated or also feels ill and cannot attend class should be in contact with the faculty member. And we are asking faculty to work with those students to ensure that they can continue to make progress in their courses. And there's a lot of options available to faculty to do that, including the option of utilizing an NAU Flex remote sort of engagement in the class, or utilizing our BB learning management system shells to allow students to continue to engage with the class as well as their colleagues in the class. So please consult with faculty if you're a student and you're not feeling well or are required to isolate or quarantine. And if you're a faculty member, we ask you to please support your students to be successful in the course.
The Dean of Students Office, of course, is here to support students, but also is a liaison with faculty and can help support in those situations through the medical absence policy and protocol, but also just as a resource for a place to field questions about what might need to happen or where students may take their concerns. And so that's a primary point of contact. Of course, all the other services that I mentioned related to housing and dining and shuttle services are also there. And then the Dean of Students Office is also helping in conjunction with our community liaison to be in touch with students who reside off campus as well.
Thank you. I'm being mindful of time. So what I'm going to do now from this point forward is to try to weave in some of the questions that we're receiving live with some of the ones that we had received previously. So one question that has come forth in various forms is this one. We have received several questions about updating the faculty syllabus statement to reflect mask requirements and their enforcement through the Student Code of Conduct. Provost Pugliese, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, our Student Learning Success and Engagement Committee deliberated about this issue. And we're following their recommendation that we're not changing the policies in the syllabus, the required policy statements. We're reverting to essentially the set of statements that we used pre-pandemic, with one addition to the syllabus, which is a reference to the Jaxer Back website. Because the situation is so dynamic and our guidelines are changing as we monitor the circumstance and consider the context in which we operate, we decided that that was the best way to approach this rather than trying to keep on top of having to update guidance in a syllabus. I will add that just yesterday, in a meeting with our Faculty Senate Executive Committee, I'm aware that the Faculty Senate is working on development of a statement that they'd like to share with faculty to use. It's a community of care statement. And we had a conversation about faculty potentially incorporating that statement into their BB Learn shells for their courses. And the other possibility was creating a slide and distributing that to faculty so that that could be displayed in the class at the beginning of the semester. So look for more information from the Faculty Senate about that.
Thank you. So many of the high level and even the lower level policies and practices that we have been discussing have taken the mountain campus as sort of the focus. And that is in part because of the large number of students that we serve and the fact that we're a residential campus. But certainly the policies and practices extend as well to students at statewide sites. So what I would like to do is perhaps ask the provost to talk a little bit about how the policy framework that we have been discussing over the last couple of months applies to these statewide sites in Phoenix, Yuma, or elsewhere.
Thank you. Yes, of course, we know that NAU operates throughout the state, and we're very mindful of our faculty, staff, and students. at our other campuses and sites in Arizona. And while many of the protocols that we talked about today apply to the Flagstaff campus, we have some similar guidelines for our statewide locations. In particular, masks are strongly recommended in indoors, and they may be required in settings indoors where physical spacing is not possible. So please look to the signage that's in place where you attend at a site throughout Arizona. We are offering our community some information about particular policies or guidelines in place at different of our sites that we operate sometimes with partners on the Jacks Are Back website. So please consult that for information pertaining to the site where you're learning or working.
Thank you. Let me circle back to one that just came in live, and I'll ask Josh to respond to this one. How do we determine a mask required space in office areas? Who decides and what are the criteria?
So the key distinction on mask required or recommended is the ability to space, right? So that is really determining factor. If there's ability to physically distance, and the CDC guideline on that is 6 feet or more between all parties in the space. If that's possible, then the mask can be required. If it's not the case, said that backwards. So if we can space, then they're recommended. But if we can't maintain the 6 feet of distance, we need to require mask in those space.
Thank you. And the requirement, that decision could be made by the office holder. Access will be provided to signage that can be printed and displayed as per an earlier discussion, correct?
Correct, that's correct. And that's for individual offices. However, the university is evaluating most of our common spaces, including classrooms, based on capacity, and we'll post those required signs in those common spaces.
Thank you. So this one's related. It goes again to the question of masks and making decisions on the ground regarding requirements. I'll post this one to the provost. What about wearing masks in a classroom where there is sufficient space for distancing? For instance, for a faculty member on stage who is far away from the students, can the faculty member remove their mask to lecture?
That's a great question. I've received that question also from our academic leaders. I suggest that people make an appropriate choice for themselves in that circumstance. It can indeed be difficult to project your voice through a mask, and even with amplification, sometimes that can be a distortion. So if you are in a classroom situation where you're able to distance, then I think if it's comfortable for you, then it's appropriate to remove the mask during the times when you're lecturing or giving instructions to students.
Very good, thank you. What are NAU's cleaning protocols for classrooms and other high usage space? Josh?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's one that we're definitely getting quite a bit of question about. So we'll continue to stock classrooms and other spaces with wipes for cleaning and disinfecting. So we'll continue to do that. One of the things we've learned throughout this process, though, is our understanding is, this is primarily an airborne virus, right? So it's transmitted through droplets, through the air, and not as commonly transmitted through spaces and surfaces. So I just want to point that out, but we will continue to provide cleaning supplies, and we'll continue our normal cleaning of spaces and rooms. We won't do that necessarily after every single meeting in a room, but we'll have a regular cleaning schedule that will take place. But it's important to clean those surfaces and keep things clean, not just for coronavirus and COVID, but for other germs and illness too, to keep those things down as well. So again, we've got a heavy focus, of course, on COVID-19, but we want to make sure we're continuing to do those things to keep our campus and community safe and as healthy as we can.
Thank you, Josh. So here's an interesting one about a traditional event at NAU. What is NAU doing for the Letters event? Margot?
Sure, this is a great tradition that we're really, really looking forward to reviving. And this year we're inviting new students as well as sophomore students who didn't have the chance to spell out the NAU letters on the South Field. We are requiring masks this year. It will be a very close contact activity, and really looking forward to just recapturing all the energy that event really bring. And more information, of course, can be found on our website about the Lumberjack experience. But we will look for a very historic and memorable one-time picture of the letters with Jack's mask up.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Margot. We're running short of time, and I do want to have some concluding remarks. So I'll just have one last question. Will NAU be pivoting to fully online, and what are the trigger points? I'll ask Josh, who is the convener of the Health Advisory Group, to take this one.
Sure. Thank you. So this is obviously another question that we've gotten in a lot of different versions over time and been looking at. The short answer is we're going to stay flexible. As you've heard throughout the day, we'll continue to monitor what's happening, look at the science, talk with our experts on campus and in the community, and make decisions, based on all of those factors. So there is no set point that will automatically pivot to totally online, but we'll continue to monitor those things and make decisions on all of our operations based on the information that we have at the time. So we'll stay flexible. We'll hope that our community stays flexible. We do commit to communicating with everybody and keeping everybody informed on where we're at and any changes that we do make.
Thank you so much, Josh. So I want to thank all of our panelists and everyone who joined us today. The level of engagement during the past couple of months as we've planned for this fall 2021, Jacks are back in full force, has been very inspiring. The town halls alone have averaged over between 700 and 1,000 live views and thousands of views of the recordings afterwards. And the number of questions, comments, suggestions that we have received have really been instrumental in informing the decision-making moving forward. I just want to take a minute to give you an overview of some next steps. Later this week, we plan to launch an employee vaccination survey, and I encourage you to respond. This is helpful for monitoring our community's health. We've already done this for students, and we've received a lot of good responses, and hope that the same will be true with our faculty and staff. Also later this week, we will be releasing a comprehensive message with details about the ways in which we will operate on fall 2021. We continue every single day to finalize decisions regarding very specific questions that arise. And I expect that by the end of this week, Jacks are back. We'll have responses to everything that we can possibly have thought of before August 23rd, with an understanding that we will continue to be nimble and update the Jacks Are Back portal as new questions arise and new guidance emerges. In coordination with that, we will make sure that whenever significant changes are made to the Jacks Are Back portal, that we also message it to you through other means, including our weekly messages from the president's office. We have talked about mitigation testing. It will begin next week, and I urge you to participate to help yourselves, your loved ones, and our community. We'll keep educating, informing, and sharing information. Let's get our Jacks vaxxed, and let's get work together for a successful fall 2021 on its way. As you all know, this is my first academic year at NAU. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to open this chapter and to see the vibrant life throughout our campus. Just the last couple of days alone, seeing students walking around doing their move-in has been very inspirational, and I really look forward to next Monday, seeing everybody back. So all my best, stay in touch, keep safe. I look forward to seeing you again in person soon. Thank you.